This shocking truth in Amos 5, the prophecy no one will dare to preach at midnight. The clock struck 12, echoing through the small, dimly lit town of Hollow Creek. It was the hour when shadows stretched long and dark, wrapping around the buildings like secrets waiting to be uncovered. People whispered about the ancient prophecy buried in the pages of Amos 5, the very words that seemed to pulse with ominous energy. What if they were true? What if tonight was the night the town would face its reckoning? Lights flickered in homes, and the air felt electric, charged with anticipation. Eyes peered through curtains, anxious and fearful. The townsfolk, unaware of the deep-rooted truth hidden in their own history, couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to happen. Earlier that day, a strange figure was spotted lurking at the edge of the forest. Dressed in tattered clothes, the stranger's eyes glowed with an intensity that made even the bravest hearts shudder. Rumor had it this person had come to Hollow Creek to deliver a message, a divine warning. Murmurs filled the local diner, a buzz of fear and intrigue. "Did you see him?" whispered a waitress as she served coffee, her hands trembling slightly. "What do you think he wants?" The room fell silent, all eyes hooked on the door, wondering if the stranger would walk in, revealing the mystery tied to Amos 5 that nobody dared to discuss. The night deepened, and the chill intensified. An unnerving howl pierced the silence, sending chills down spines. A child ran past, wide-eyed and breathless, exclaiming, "They're coming! They're coming!" Eyes widened, breath quickened. Adults rushed to the windows, searching the darkness for answers yet fearing what might emerge. Just then, the old church bell rang out, tolling the hour with a haunting resonance. The sound resonated like a warning cry, awakening an age-old dread that seemed to seep from the cracks in the very walls of Hollow Creek. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the bell's echoes faded, a thick silence enveloped the town, pregnant with unanswered questions. What was the truth hidden in Amos 5? What did the stranger know? And most chilling of all, was the prophecy about to unfold before their very eyes? Just as they braced for the worst, the lights in town abruptly went out, plunging them into darkness. A single scream pierced the night, a sound that would haunt their dreams forever. Were they too late to uncover the truth, or did that truth now inch closer, waiting just beyond the veil? The darkness swallowed Hollow Creek, wrapping it in suffocating quiet. Only the pale moonlight dared to peek through heavy clouds, casting eerie shadows that danced wildly. Panic surged through the streets as everyone fumbled for their flashlights, only to find their batteries dead or missing. Fear gripped their hearts, and whispers hung in the air what lurked outside. What do we do? A voice trembled from the crowd gathering at the diner. A thin man, his hands shaking, stood up, wringing a napkin. We need to stay together. But his words fell flat, lost in the cacophony of rising worry. Then a fleeting movement caught everyone's attention. The door creaked open, revealing the stranger. They could barely make out his face, but the glow in his eyes pierced through the gloom like a beacon of unsettling truth. Murmurs cascaded through the crowd, drawing people closer, their instincts telling them that this man held answers. He stepped forward, barely visible, his voice a low rumble. The prophecy is rising. You must heed the warning. A heavy silence fell as disbelief hung in the air, thick and uncomfortable. Amos 5 speaks of dark days that befall a land, he continued, his voice rolling like thunder, and tonight, the first shadow descends. A woman near the front gasped, clutching her chest. What do you mean? What's coming? He held her gaze, his eyes unflinching. False security binds you. The very foundations of this town tremble. It is time to awaken. The ones who turn a blind eye will bear the weight of the coming storm. Suddenly, an icy wind surged through the diner, extinguishing the few candles lit on the tables. The cold curled fingers around their throats, tightening like a vice. Gasps echoed as people instinctively drew closer together, seeking warmth and comfort. But there was nowhere to run anymore, the predictions of old were crashing down around them. Is this a joke? A man shouted, anger flaring through his fear. Get out of here with your nonsense. Willful ignorance is your demise. The stranger shot back, his voice now rising. Tonight is the reckoning, and the essence of this prophecy must be understood. Then, in a frenzied moment, the lights flickered back on, blinding them for a heartbeat. Visions danced before them, memories of laughter, love, and betrayal sprawled across the diner's worn floor. As their eyes adjusted, they found the stranger had vanished. Panic surged through the crowd as they rushed to the windows, peering out into the vast, enveloping shadows of the night. The air felt heavier now, pregnant with despair. The distant howls grew louder, echoing like a haunting reminder of what lay beyond. Then came a soft whisper that turned their blood to ice. Help us! The plea seemed to seep through the walls, a sound tugging at their unresolved fears, gripping them tighter than chains. What was that? Someone whimpered, their eyes wide with horror. Everyone stay calm. The diner owner shouted, though his voice trembled. But there was no way to fight the growing dread looming over them. With every pulse of sound, every flash of uncertainty, the reverberations of Amos 5 felt closer. The prophecy was unfolding, its tendrils reaching into their lives, deeper than any demon they could imagine. As their eyes roamed the town, they seized the silhouette of something moving. A massive shadow lurked just beyond the tree line, where the forest met the edge of darkness, shifting ominously. Were they merely spectators of their doom, or did they still have a choice to change the course? What was the stranger's message? The fog of uncertainty thickened. And in the depths of their fear, the real question loomed: would they embrace the truth or surrender to the night? The diner's air was thick with unease, punctuated by the frantic chatter of confused townsfolk. The flickering lights cast jittery shadows on their faces, revealing wide eyes filled with terror. Everyone seemed to search for a semblance of reassurance, but their frantic whispers only deepened the dread that settled like lead in the pit of their stomachs. Did you hear the voice? A woman clutched her partner's arm, her knuckles white, as if holding on could somehow ward off whatever was encroaching. We need to get out of here. Something's wrong. No. We can't go out there. Her partner scoffed, his voice rising. What if that stranger is right? What if we're safer here? As the crowd debated, an eerie calm began to envelop them, the kind that arrives just before the storm. Outside, the darkness throbbed like a heartbeat, pulsating with an unseen energy. The whispered plea lingered over them, weaving into their thoughts, until a figure darted across the diner window, a fleeting silhouette that made their hearts race. Did you see that? Someone screamed, pointing toward the window. What was that? Just a trick of the light, barked a burly man, trying to maintain some semblance of control. But even he could feel the helplessness clawing at him. This was no ordinary night in Hollow Creek. The feeling of time stretching taut began to settle over the diner. Minutes felt like hours as they waited. Just when they thought they might burst from the tension, the lights flickered again, momentarily casting the diner in stark relief. In that haunting glimpse, they saw a figure huddled, crouched, staring back at them from the shadows. Get back! The diner owner yelled, stumbling backwards, his chair clattering to the floor. What is that? A voice whimpered from the back, as all heads turned toward the window, where the shape loomed larger, pressing against the glass, its face obscured. The whispers of panic escalated. Let me out! I can't take this anymore. A middle-aged man bolted for the door, throwing it open. Cold air rushed in like an angry beast. No! Don't go! A woman cried, hands clawed in desperation. But the man was gone, swallowed up by the night as the door slammed behind him. Did he just? Someone gasped. Before anyone could respond, there was another rustling sound, this time from the back of the diner. Chairs scraped as people turned, wide-eyed, scrambling towards one another. A voice broke through the chaos. "We need to face this together. Whatever this is." But even as the brave words were spoken, the walls seemed to close in. Shadows dripped like ink from the edges of the room, coiling towards them, threatening to snuff out their resolve. Just then, someone screamed, a piercing sound that sliced through the fear. From the dining counter, a woman pointed, her finger trembling. "Look! The windows there, they're changing." And it was true. The windows shimmered, warping like a mirage, revealing glimpses of twisted faces and writhing figures beyond the veil of darkness. Screams erupted as more townsfolk stumbled away from the sight, backing towards the kitchen. What do they want? More voices rose, colliding with each other, every person for themselves. Was this prophecy really coming alive before their very eyes? In that moment of sheer hysteria, the lights dimmed again until only shadows remained. Beneath their rising panic, a thought flickered like a candle against the encroaching dark. They were not just witnesses, they held the power to fight back. But at what cost? Suddenly, from the depths of the shadows, something surged forward, pushing against the front door, powerful and relentless as if eager to break through. The time had come for a choice. Would they stand together against the storm or be claimed by the encroaching darkness? Barely holding on to sanity, they prepared for the moment of confrontation. Outside, a low growl rumbled, reverberating with the weight of unknown dread. As the barrier between their world and the other began to thin, they knew one truth: one way or another, the night would not end quietly. What awaited them beyond that door? The door shuddered violently, as if something unspeakable was clawing at the other side. A collective gasp swept through the diner, disbelief and fear etched into every face. The shadows danced, morphing into grotesque images that teased the edges of reality, and the growl intensified a woven melody of threat and pain. What if it's the man from outside? Someone whispered, eyebrows furrowed in terror. What if he didn't make it? Shut up! Barked a woman, hands pressed against her temples, trying to block out the panic swirling around her. We need to think. But thoughts were muddy, racing in all directions, with no agreement among the frantic voices. As silence settled momentarily, a different sound cut through the unmistakable crack of splintering wood. The door buckled, threatening to give in. Get away from it! A man commanded, trying to rally the terrified crowd. The desperation in his voice echoed their inner turmoil, but it was too late. A sudden rush of air roared past them as the door was flung open, revealing an impenetrable darkness beyond. Swirling and alive, peering into that void, a figure emerged, one that defied the natural order, twisted and otherworldly. The sights troubled the mind. It was almost human, but so wrong, so distorted. It advanced, and with each step, the atmosphere thickened, suffocating hope. What do you want? Someone shouted, throat dry with fear. The figure halted, a pair of glowing eyes boring into their very souls. You called it, rasped, the voice both soothing and terrifying. You sang your doubts. I came to answer. Trembling, the townspeople exchanged glances. What darkness had they unleashed? The entity emitted a low laugh, one that made the hairs on the back of their necks stand on end. Your fear binds you. It is what I feed on. Panic surged as the room trembled with unspoken horrors. Then, from the back, a dark-haired girl, no older than 16, stepped forward, trembling but defiant. You don't have power over us. The murmur rippled through the crowd as eyes widened in astonishment. Could her voice shatter the spell of dread? The figure paused, exuding an impatience that made the girl swallow hard. Child, you misunderstand. I am not here to take what you hold. I offer you the truth if you dare embrace it. A chill swept through the diner as she hesitated, the weight of her choice sinking in. The air turned electric and thick, a crackle of energy both foreboding and tempting. Choose, it hissed, the truth or your delusion. Those last words hung like fog in the air, cool against their skin. The glow from the creature's eyes flickered like a distant star about to wink out. Each person felt the choices binding them, breathing longing and dread in equal measure. What if the truth is worse? Someone murmured, a quiver in their voice. The girl took a step forward, intention burning in her eyes. I'll take the truth. I refuse to let fear run my life. Her voice cut through the clamor, like a lighthouse slicing through fog. The entity leaned closer, intrigued, its grin widening into an unfathomable smile. Young one, you are brave, and yet, bravery has a price. The tension in the room ratcheted up another notch. Gasps erupted as a distant thunder rumbled across the sky, and shadows began swirling around the diner in a wild dance. It was a whirlwind of despair and revelation. Are you ready? The figure asked, its voice a whisper that seemed to engulf the room. A silence fell, the only sounds the rapid beating of hearts and the quiet rise of breath, steeped in disbelief and anticipation. Just then, a flicker of light from the girl's hand illuminated a path toward the unknown. In that moment, with fear still clinging to their skin, the townspeople faced the darkness. What truth awaited them, lurking in the depths of the shadows? Would they stand together to confront it, or would they falter as the unknown twisted their fates? The answer was about to unfold. The moment hung in the air like heavy fog, clinging to every person in the diner. The girl felt the flicker of courage within her, a small flame against the suffocating dark. The entity's smile widened, anticipation gleaming in its shimmering eyes, a hungry predator ready to devour the prey. What if I told you, it began, slow and deliberate, that your lives have been nothing more than a script? Each fear, each secret desire penned down, only to lead you to this seemingly cursed night? Murmurs of uncertainty rippled through the crowd, some faces paling, others turning steely. No one had the strength to speak, but the air crackled with a collective questioning. The girl clutched her flickering light, determined yet terrified. A script? She echoed, heart pounding in her chest. You mean we're trapped? Trapped? The entity laughed, a sinister sound echoing in the confined space like a death knell. No, my dear child. You are merely actors shackled by your own roles, oblivious to the mosaic of truths that surround you. As the shadows twisted and writhed around the diner, a small group near the entrance edged closer, their faces pale with shock. One man, his brow furrowed with concern, muttered, "We have a choice, right? We don't have to dance to your tune." "Oh, but it is far too late for that." The entity jeered. "You have all sung your doubts so sweetly, and now the melody crescendos, demanding an answer." Just then, thunder clapped louder, rattling the walls, and the overhead lights flickered ominously, plunging the diner into an erratic chiaroscuro of light and shadow. Gasps filled the atmosphere. "Stand firm!" The girl shouted, but her heart raced within her chest, almost louder than her voice. She turned to the others, their faces a tapestry of fear, determination, and indecision. "We can't let it control us. We must face whatever it has to reveal." The entity recoiled as if struck by her words, the eerie light from its eyes dimming momentarily. "So, the brave child wishes to rattle the bars of her cage." It leaned in, deceptively soft. "But heed me, little voice among giants, the truth, when revealed, shall lead to unspeakable anguish. Maybe anguish is better than living a lie." She shot back, emboldened. A flicker of hope ignited in the onlookers' eyes, the thought of breaking free from their burdens gripped them like a firestorm. Silence. The creature boomed, its voice cracking through the diner, causing each person to flinch. "Truth comes at a price. Are you willing to pay? What will you sacrifice?" Fear tightened like a vice around their hearts. Realization washed over the crowd, the cost could be more than they were ready to face. "Are any of you prepared for the consequences?" It sneered, appetite for despair growing. At that moment, a voice emerged from the corner, a woman in her 40s, typically reserved, her brow furrowed with fierce resolve. "I lost my son to fear, to the lies I believed. I'm ready." Whatever the truth is, I will face it. More murmurs followed, voices rising in unity. We're ready. Just tell us. We want to know the truth. The entity seemed to revel in their growing desperation. Then I shall open the portal, it hissed, but the flicker of light in the girl's hand began to pulse faster. It fought back against the dark, hope intertwined with fear, forming a luminous path leading straight to the heart of the mystery. At that critical moment, an intermittent shriek broke through the din, a horrifying sound from the outside, reverberating through the walls of the diner. Everyone turned toward the door, hearts racing anew, dread pooling at their feet. What was that? Someone whispered, as the fear returned, thickening the air with each breath. Whatever you've summoned, it knows we're here, the girl breathed, clutching the light tighter. The entity watched, wicked amusement dancing on its features. The truth is hungry, my dear. Let us see if your heart can endure the sacrifice demanded of you. And as the lights flickered again, desperate whispered prayers mingled with gasps, the door vibrated violently once more. Would they unleash a darkness anew, or would the truth finally set them free? The thunder rumbled ominously overhead, shaking them to the core. What truth lurked behind that door? What price would they be forced to pay for salvation? The answer would demand courage they weren't sure they possessed. The door slammed open with a force that cut through the chilling tension like a knife. Frigid air rushed in, bringing the scent of rain-soaked asphalt and something darker, an unmistakable reek of decay. The girl squinted into the murky darkness outside, trying to comprehend what lay beyond the threshold. A figure emerged, staggering into the diner, drenched and gasping. A man, his face obscured by shadows, stumbled towards them, clutching his side as if holding something in place. Panic surged through the crowd. Help me, he wheezed, his eyes wide with terror. The entity's expression morphed into an unsettling mix of delight and hunger. Ah, a new arrival. How precious, it murmured, almost purring. The girl's heart raced. What happened to you? Out there, he gasped, pointing behind him. I saw them. They're coming. His voice cracked, filled with raw dread. They figured out where we are. Before anyone could react, eerie whispers echoed through the diner, voices rising from the shadows. The air grew thick with fear, twisting the atmosphere heavier with each passing second. The girl held her light closer, its glow intensifying momentarily, as if sensing the threat. Who's coming? She pressed, desperation clawing at her throat. The ones who control the scripts. He cried, collapsing to the floor. The urgency in his voice echoed in the hearts of the patrons. They've been watching, waiting for tonight. The entity clapped its hands slowly, the sound reverberating around them, a macabre applause. Such a lovely twist. Did you see how the lines intertwine? Its laughter rolled through the diner. Your lives, your truths are mere plays, and yet you cling to the notion of free will. The murmurs grew louder. What does he mean? What is this script? And what will it take to break free? Shouted a woman near the back. The man struggled to rise to his knees, eyes wild. To face the truth, to own your fears. They want you to run, to hide, but you can't escape what's written for you. He drew in a shaky breath. Only by confronting what terrifies you can you change your fate. The girl felt the weight of the collective gaze upon her, the flickering light in her hand dimming with the shifting wavelengths of fear. She took a step forward, finding her voice. So, we fight. We can't let them control us any longer. If we're trapped by our own scripts, let us rewrite them. Her declaration hung in the air as the shadows around them swirled and writhed in agitation. The face of the entity contorted, its wicked grin faltering for a moment. How optimistic, it hissed, regaining its sleek composure. But tell me, little actress, do you truly know what price awaits when you try to rewrite destiny? Thunder rattled the diner again, the entity's laughter swallowed by the deafening crack. The man on the floor groaned, and the girl rushed to him, feeling his clammy hands trembling beneath hers. What's it going to cost? She pressed urgently, fear tightening her chest. Everything, he replied simply, voice barely above a whisper. The truth is unforgiving. Ice gripped their hearts as they exchanged worried glances, grappling with the implications of his words. Just then, a pulse of energy surged from the entrance of blinding light, followed by a dreadful wail that echoed through the diner and settled heavily on their souls. The entity sneered, its dark demeanor glowing with tainted excitement. Open the portal, they're hungry for your fear. And only those willing to sacrifice might emerge unscathed. The whispers intensified, mixing with the howling wind outside. Shadows twisted and formed into horrid shapes, entities hungry to breach their reality. Stay close. The girl shouted, grasping the shaking hands around her. We won't back down. Not anymore. As the darkness pushed forward, creeping into every corner, uncertainty fluttered in their chests. Together, could they confront the unspeakable? The door rattled violently as a primal determination welled inside the girl. The truth would indeed demand a price, but would they pay it? Or would the darkness consume them, stripping away any hope of salvation? And as the lights flickered one last time, a piercing scream echoed through the diner, threatening to tear apart their fragile resolve. In that moment, she realized a choice had to be made before time ran out. But did they even know what awaited them on the other side? The answer lurked just beyond the doorway, shrouded in shadows and whispers, and the battle for their souls was about to begin. The wail of terror faded into an icy silence, leaving the diner trembling with dread. The flickering light sputtered as if in protest, casting frantic shadows that danced along the walls. The girl tightened her grip on the hands around her, eyes searching for reassurance among the frightened faces. But she didn't find it. They were all lost in a sea of confusion, paralyzed by the darkness swelling at the edges of their reality. Get ready. She called out, trying to break through the fear wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. She needed a plan, something bold. We can't let them take us. We rewrite our script together, right here and now. A tremor rippled through the crowd. They exchanged hesitant glances, uncertainty mingling with raw fear. Then, the man on the ground, trembling and soaked, whispered fiercely, "Your courage, it might light a path. But do you truly understand the cost?" "I don't care about the cost." She shouted defiantly, feeling the heat of adrenaline coursing through her. What is worse than complete surrender to this darkness? We have a choice to make. The entity laughed softly, the sound resonating with menace. Ah, but dear girl, choices have consequences far greater than you realize. Walk the path of truth, and you may lose more than just your safety. The air crackled with tension as the shadows closed in, undulating, shifting like living nightmares. The girl's heart banged against her ribs, and a lump formed in her throat. But fear was not going to silence her now. Listen to me. She shouted, voice strong despite the quaking within. We all have something we fear. What is lurking behind your eyes? What haunts your dreams? Whatever twisted script has been written for us, it's time to declare our own. Close to the door, a slender woman stepped forward, trembling but resolute. My brother, he vanished last winter. I think they took him. If that's what I must face, then I'll do it. I want him back. Another voice emerged, a young man with a tilted baseball cap. I've been running from my past for too long. I owe it to myself to stop hiding. The energy in the diner shifted as more joined in with their fears, rising like a battle cry. This ends tonight. They shouted, finding strength in numbers. The entity recoiled, hissing softly, clearly unsettled. How amusing. A chorus of desperate souls hoping to rewrite their destinies with a flicker of light. The girl stood firm. We'll shine bright enough to burn away the shadows. Together. A massive crash erupted at the diner door as the malevolent aura churned violently. Shards of darkness exploded outward, swirling into a storm that threatened to engulf them all. Face your fears, and the truth shall be revealed. The man from the floor gasped, now struggling to raise himself fully. What controls you is your fear of the darkness. Together. You have to face it together. With a roaring fury, the shadows howled in response, reforming into monstrous figures that loomed just outside the threshold, eyes flickering like dying stars. Stand firm. The girl yelled, brandishing her light. We're no longer your puppets. We claim our narrative. For a heart-stopping moment, the diner held its breath as the entity's laughter mingled with the thrumming pulse of darkness. The storm outside raged harder, and for a second, silence stretched across the room. Then, with a blinding flash, the portal beneath the door erupted open, revealing a swirling abyss, a glimpse into the depths of fear they all harbored. It beckoned them, a siren call promising both salvation and devastation. Every instinct screamed for her to flee, to pull back from the edge of that chasm, yet her feet felt glued to the ground. Jump! She cried, sensing the awakening of courage within her. We dive into our darkness to find the light. One by one, patrons shuffled toward the portal, their fear transforming into a shared mission. But the girl knew instinctively what if they couldn't return. As the storm intensified, she took a breath, preparing for the leap into the unknown. Was this their salvation or their end? And with a final glance at the heroically trembling faces around her, the girl whispered to herself this was only the beginning of whatever lay beyond. But what awaited them in the darkness? A revelation, a horror, or perhaps a truth long buried? The abyss yawned before them, a swirling tempest of shadows and flickering memories. As the first brave soul leaped into the chasm, a surge of chaotic energy ignited the air, crackling like electricity. The girl watched helplessly, heart racing with an ominous mix of fear and hope. Go, go. She urged the others, feeling their collective pulse quicken. One by one, they jumped into the void, their silhouettes swallowed by darkness, leaving her alone on the precipice. Every instinct within her screamed to follow, yet she hesitated, trapped in the gravity of her own fears. Then came a wild scream, shattering the silence, pulling her eyes to where a figure stumbled back, gasping, hair wild and eyes wide with terror. They're in there. The man cried, voice raw. They're everywhere. The girl felt ice run through her veins. Who? What's in there? Panic threatened to overtake her composure, but she forced it down. She couldn't fall apart now. The creatures, he stammered, shuddering as though recalling a horrible truth. Demons of our own making. They'll show you things that you wish were dead and buried. She looked back at the portal, the churning void eerily beautiful yet hideously inviting. Doubt gnawed at her. What if they were being devoured by an irreversible fate? But just as the thought rooted into her mind, the slender woman who had spoken of her brother stepped back toward her, determination etched in every line of her face. Whatever's in there, we face it together, she said firmly, her voice quaking yet resolute. We cannot be afraid of what lies in the dark. It's time to confront the truth. The girl's heart swelled with newfound courage. You're right. We have to go in. But we do it as a united front. No one left behind. With one swift motion, she leaped, dragging the woman with her, the roar of the abyss swallowing their screams as they plunged into an inky void. Cold enveloped them, like entering icy water, and the darkness closed around them, thick and suffocating. Suddenly, she hit the ground hard. Pain shot through her body as she landed in what felt like a wasteland of jagged memories. Shadows stretched and twisted around them, desolate landscapes made up of forgotten fears and broken promises. Where are we? She gasped, scrambling to her feet, searching frantically for signs of the others. They must be here somewhere. The woman said, glancing around with wide, frightened eyes. This place feels wrong. Everyone. The girl shouted, her voice hoarse but fierce. Can anyone hear me? Echoes bounced back, taunting and chilling. A vision of the young man with the baseball cap emerged, his back turned to them, trembling as he stared blankly into the void. Why did you come back? He whispered without turning around, voice heavy with despair. You're not supposed to be here, you'll become like us. What do you mean? Panic flooded her veins. What happened to you? He finally turned, and she recoiled at the sight of his face, twisted in a grotesque mask of torment. They'll show you your worst fears. It's South what this place does. You think you can rewrite the script? No. You're just a part of the play now. Terror clawed at her throat as the ground trembled beneath them. The shadows began to shift, morphing into visions of their collective past lost loved ones, haunting regrets, unbearable anguish. Screams echoed in an infinite loop, each more desperate than the last. We have to stick together. The girl cried, gripping the woman's hand tightly. But the man's voice broke through the darkness, chilling and dark. You can't escape what you've brought with you. Suddenly, a blinding flash illuminated their surroundings, revealing monstrous forms emerging from the dark, eyes glowing with a hunger for fear. Face your fears. A guttural voice bellowed, a chorus of maddening whispers echoing through the air. Join us or be consumed. The girl felt a pang of dread, her heart hammering in her chest. This twisted reality they had stepped into wasn't just a test of courage, it was a fight for their very souls. Keep moving. She urged the others, dragging the woman forward as the shadows lunged toward them, desperate to pull them into their grasp. But the echoes of their fears were relentless, threatening to pull them apart. What is your fear? She shouted, pushing through the heaviness of the dark. What makes you feel so powerless? The shadows whispered their answers, a cacophony of despair. As the girl spread her arms wide, she felt an unfamiliar power ignite within her, a flicker of hope. We are not alone. We face this together. Would they be able to resist the darkness and reclaim their strength? Or would fear continue to bind them, held captive by their pasts? The answer lay beyond the ever-encroaching shadows, a choice to make that would determine their fate. The shadows surged forward, and as they did, a haunting question loomed, echoing through the chaos, waiting for an answer: who among them would fall to the darkness? The moment they began to run, the ground quaked violently beneath their feet. The shadows wriggled like live serpents, tightening around their ankles, threatening to drag them into the abyss. Heart pounding, the girl looked back at the baseball-capped figure who approached slowly, each step bringing forth more chaos, more dread. Please. She shouted, urging him to keep moving. We have to stick together. Remember our strength. The urgency in her voice seemed to pierce through the labyrinth of confusion. He remained frozen, trapped in that moment of despair. What if we're already lost? He muttered, eyes widening in panic. What if fear never really leaves? A pang of icy terror ran down her spine. She turned to the woman by her side, hoping to find reassurance. But the laughter of dark echoes surrounded them, wrapping its arms around her, mocking her efforts. This is your destiny, little girl, a whisper coiled through the air, soothing and sinister. You can't escape it. Keep running. She yelled, as the monstrous figures stretched their claws, twisting the fabric of space, just a heartbeat away. Fate doesn't care how much you resist, the woman gasped, her breath a fog in the chilling atmosphere. What if they're right? What if we're bound to repeat our mistakes? No. The girl's voice rang out, steadying her resolve. We can rise above this. We can break the cycle. She felt another surge of power within her, something primal that burned fiercely against the despair that threatened to swallow her whole. They picked up speed, shouldering through the unrelenting weight of the shadows, but the whispers grew louder. Visions flashed before them: lost opportunities, broken relationships, the sharp sting of regret. The darkness didn't just dwell in the void but intertwined itself into the very fibers of their memories. Stop! The baseball-capped boy shouted suddenly, and the girl glanced back as he dropped to his knees, trembling. We can't face this. It's too much. We won't survive. No. The girl shouted again, fear creeping back in but pushing it away with conviction. This is the moment we fight. Every fear we face helps us break free. Determination surged through her veins. We can conquer this together. Suddenly, the shadows twisted and writhed more violently, echoing back her words in an unnatural chorus. They seemed to struggle against her resolve, twisting sharper, deeper, and darker. It was as if her very conviction had awakened something ancient and angry, and every whisper turned into a shriek of anguish. "Join us!" the chorus commanded, their collective voices drowning out the girl's courage. "You can't fight alone. You'll never be strong enough." The ground beneath her feet vibrated with the push of something indescribable, a force she could almost taste in the air. One by one, the shadows formed grotesque faces, eyes wide with sorrow and madness. She could see fragments of herself, her friends, twisted into shadows of their worst fears, their darkest moments made manifest. "Let me show you!" the baseball-capped boy cried, suddenly enveloped by a dark claw that stretched toward the girl, pulling him nearer. "Let me take you into that darkness. It's all over for us." "No!" she screamed, reaching out. "You're not powerless. We can pull each other out. Just breathe." With an unexpected jolt, the darkness hesitated, momentarily stunned. A fleeting moment of clarity emerged, glimmering between the rippling shadows. Her heart raced as she grasped the moment. "Now. Together. Remember who we are." The girl and the woman knit their hands together, forming an unbreakable bond. A fierce light began to shine, struggling against the impending darkness, igniting warmth and courage. She could feel it, a swell of energy coursing through them, a gathering force that felt almost tangible. "Don't give in," she yelled, lifting her chin defiantly. "We will overcome." But as they pressed forward, the shadows lunged once more, a furious tide crashing against them. The darkness roared, a cacophony of fear rising to dreadful heights, echoing through the abyss. In one last desperate attempt, she closed her eyes, embracing the light within, ready to face whatever horror awaited, fully aware that this fight was just beginning. Would they summon enough strength to fight the shadows, or would the darkness choke out their hope forever? The moment felt electric, the brink of everything hinging on one final choice, one leap of faith into the unknown. The shadows lunged, snarling like hungry wolves, hungry for the warmth of their fear. The girl felt the pull intensify, grasping tightly to the woman's hand as they stood together, determined. No, they wouldn't be swallowed whole. Not now, not ever. She closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and let out a roar, a sound that resonated from her core. "We are not afraid." It rang through the darkness, cutting through the chaos like a blade. The very fabric of the night trembled in response. Suddenly, the shadows writhed backward, recoiling as if stung. "Together!" came the urging voice of the woman at her side, lending the girl strength. More figures emerged from the dark, the baseball-capped boy, the man from the floor, the slender woman, each ready to join arms in defiance of the consuming darkness. The girl opened her eyes, a bright light forming at her center. "Let us rewrite our ending." With that, they formed a circle, hands clasped, grounding themselves in bravery and hope. Thoughts emerged, memories flashing, each person silently confronting their fears, lost loved ones, guilt, regret. They could feel pain churning like a storm cloud, but it could also be strength, an energy waiting to be transformed. They conjured courage, allowing it to surge through them like wildfire, igniting hope in the midst of despair. The shadows poised, swirling, but she had strength now, and the fears couldn't be more powerful than their resolve. "Face your truth. Own your story," she screamed. "Power." And just like that, the collective chant ignited the air, harnessing the bond of shared pain and resilience. A brilliant light erupted, pushing outward, illuminating the darkness. The shadows clawed wildly, but against this brilliance, they could no longer flinch. "Together." Echoed through the chasm, confessions turned to resolve, a chorus of voices binding like chains of unity. Visions collided in an explosion of color, people finding closure, letting go of grief, rewriting their losses into legacies of hope. "Enough. Enough." The entity howled, retreating, unable to withstand the force they commanded. "You cannot rewrite the script. Watch us. The girl shouted, unwavering, the embers of courage fueling her. They would defy the fate laid before them, one that had long bound them in an everlasting cycle of despair. In a magnificent surge, the light enveloped them, incandescent against an oppressive dark, bursting through boundaries, pulling them from the abyss. One by one, the figures absorbed into the brilliance, each transformation echoing through the void, reverberating until the shadows began to disintegrate, peeling away like layers of paint from an old wall. She could sense each person absorbing the lessons learned, transforming their fear into newfound strength. The girl held on to the power of collective spirits, unwavering in clarity, guiding them back toward freedom. With a deafening crack, the darkness shattered, revealing bright tendrils of dawn bursting over the horizon. They emerged from the void, disoriented at first but alive, breathing in the fresh air of Hollow Creek, a sacred town reborn. The dawn wasn't just a sunrise, it was a baptism of hope, washing over them, cleansing the weight of the past. In that moment, overwhelming gratitude flooded through the girl as she realized they had woven their own narrative, one of resilience, transformation, truth, and liberation. It had cost them pain, facing shadows they feared most, but they emerged stronger. Together, the streets were alive again, filled with whispers of gratitude among townsfolk awakening from their slumber, now alight with knowledge. The church bells tolled in the distance, a sweeter song resonating than before. They sat together on the diner steps, colors shimmering, hearts beating harmoniously. Each shared story became a thread of connection that stitched them into a family knitted by secrets shared, shadows faced, and burdens borne. Together, she whispered, the other voices echoing softly. They wouldn't just survive, they would thrive, forever changed by what they had conquered. The sun climbed higher, casting warmth over Hollow Creek. And as new blooms unfolded, the girls smiled, knowing they held the power of truth in their hands, stronger than any darkness could ever dare to steal again. But as they looked toward the horizon, a knowing settled deep in her heart, every ending is but a new beginning. And once more, light shined bright across the town. It was their moment to rise, reclaim their narrative, and write the next chapter. Now, before you leave this unfolding world of hope, listen closely. You need to subscribe right now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories rolling out. Smash that like button now to keep the algorithm pumping hard. Flood the comments section with your reactions, your theories, your hopes for these characters, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Together, we can forge a brighter future, one story at a time.